All right, so the first thing we want to do here is assign digits for our two possible outcomes. So when we are selecting people for the law school, we have either men or women. And we want to look at the part here where they say they are equally likely to earn degrees. So since they are equally likely, I want the same number of digits to represent men and women. So I'm going to say let 0 through 4 represent women, and 5 through 9 represent men. All right, so both equally likely. Now you don't have to do the exact same. Maybe you had 0 through 4 for men and 5 through 9 for women. That's still fine. Another option I see people do is even and odd. So maybe even digits represent men, odd represent women, or vice versa. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is look at 12 digits, because they say there are 12 students going into this School of Law this year. And the number of digits that are 0 through 4 of the 12 are the number of women So of those 12, however many are a 0 through 4 would represent how many women there are. So now that this is set up, we want to actually go through and do the simulation. So I want to pick 12 people at a time. So I'm going to say my first trial starts here and ends here. So then what I want to look at is in those, so each digit represents a person. In those 12, I want to figure out how many are women. So I'm going to look for how many 0 through 4. So there's 1, 2, 3. So my first trial, I had 3 women. All right, my next trial, I want to count off 12 more. So 3. So that would be here. And I want to then do the same thing. So count how many women we have. So anything that's a 0 through 4 would represent women. I'm just going to highlight here. So of those 12 that were selected, there were 7 women. Okay, so now we have done 2 trials. And they ask us to do 5. So I'm just going to do the same thing here. So this trial had 4 women. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this trial we had 6 women. And then our last trial will end here. And I want to highlight how many women there are, so how many 0s through 4s. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women in this trial. So now to actually answer their question, so is this evidence that women are underrepresented? I want to look at how often that result that they were focusing on. So they were talking about only 4 of the 12 new students were female. So what I'm going to look at is how likely was it that 4 or less were female. Okay, so I'm going to say in our simulation, it was not rare to have 4 or less women. out of 12. Okay, so then I want to show my results for that. So if I'm looking here in 2 out of our 5 trials, so 2 out of 5, which is 40%. So in our simulation, it was not rare to have 4 or less women out of 12. So there is no evidence of underrepresentation. Okay, so if that 40% would have been something pretty small, then I would have thought, it's not very likely to only get 4 women. So then maybe I would have thought they were underrepresented, but 40% is, that's too likely. That's almost half. So I would say women are not being underrepresented. Okay, so next problem, similar idea. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up what my values are going to represent. So they tell me there's a 60% chance of having a girl. So I want to let 6 of my 10 digits represent being a girl. So I'm going to say, let 0 through 5 represent girl. And then 6 through 9 will represent a boy. So I'm going to count how many digits are needed to arrive at 3 girls. In other words, until I get 3 numbers that are 0 through 5. Okay? So, depending on where you started on your table, you would get different results. So I'm just going to start at the second line since the first problem took up the first line. Okay, so I'm just going to count how many I need until I get to 3 0 through 5s. Let's see here. So here's 1, 2. So I just arrived at my 3rd girl there. So then I want to mark off that was the first trial. And it took 1, 2, 3, 4 children to get to those 3 girls. So now we're going to do the same thing, and this will be my next trial. So there's a girl, and there's another. So this time it took 4 children again. Okay, so they asked us to complete 5 trials here. So we're going to keep going. So there's a girl, and there's my 3rd. So let's mark that off. So that took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children until I got those 3 girls. All right, we'll keep going here with our 4th trial. So girl, girl, girl. So it again took 4. And for our last trial here, girl, girl, girl. So that took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so those are our 5 trials. 3 times it took us 4 children to get to 3 girls. The other 2 times it took us 6. So if you started at a different line, you may have different results, of course. So then to answer their question, on average, how long will it take? So on average, it took, and then I want to find the average of those 4 or those 5 numbers. So I'm just going to add my 5 results there and divide by 5. So I get 4.8. So on average, it took 4.8 children to have 3 girls.